Hoka now has two racing shoes, the Rocket X2 and the Cielo X1. They're very different and one of them may be right for you, the other one not so much. Let's find out which one you need to pick. Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex and in today's video we have the comparison, the battle shall I say, between the HOKA Cielo X1 just released and the one-year-old HOKA Rocket X2. These two shoes are the top of the line racing shoes from HOKA. The two of them are very different and this video is meant to help you decide which one is right for you. They don't work the same way. Both of them may work for you, but I believe that each of us will have a preference between the two. I will go down a list of specs, a list of features on these two shoes, and I will tell you what's different, how they work, which one I prefer with my style of running, my anatomy, and hopefully this will help you decide which one's best for you. First of all, let's go through some specs, some numbers. Looking at the weight of the shoes, we have 287 grams on the Cielo X1, 247 on the Rocket X2, so 40 grams difference, much lighter experience with the Rocket X2. You can feel it on your foot. It's lighter also when you run, you definitely can feel the difference. So yeah, this is the Rocket X2 winning the weight battle. Drop and stack heights, both of the two shoes are maxing out the World Athletics limit, almost maxing it out. 39 millimeters in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, 7 millimeters drop. A bit more drop here, 5 millimeters drop for that 39 to 34 or 40 to 35, depending on how you measure. So a bit less drop on this shoe. You tend to feel it a bit, but I would say that they both run like a 6 millimeter shoe. And if there's a difference, then the lower drop can be felt on the Rocket X2. Looking at the width of the platform, the Cielo X1 is wider, especially in the forefoot. You have 5 to 6 extra millimeters of width in the forefoot of this shoe, making it more stable. We'll come back to the stability later on in this discussion. But yeah, there's a bit more width in this shoe, explaining also the extra weight, but not only. Let's go through the different features of the two shoes. We're looking first at the upper of the two shoes, and you have two very different uppers. The last of the two shoes are different as well. Remember, the last is that piece of wood or plastic, that shape that you put inside the shoe when building it, and therefore it defines the volume of the shoe and how it will fit us when we try it. The last has more volume, I would even say much more volume on the Cielo X1. So if you have feet with more volume, if you have wider feet, definitely go for the Cielo X1. This is a more narrow, let's say smaller last used on the Rocket X2. I do prefer it. I think it's mimicking a bit more my foot shape. I have an average foot shape, but if you have a bit more volume, again, if you have wider feet, definitely Cielo X1. And I would say that if you're racing longer distances like the marathon and if you experience swelling in your feet, then Cielo X1 as well will accommodate a bit better that swelling experience. Looking at the fit of the shoe itself, not just the last, but how the shoe fits. This is a snugger fit due to the last, but not only. The upper is also a bit tighter and wraps a bit better your foot. The tongue here is a semi-gusseted tongue that is actually independent, not tied to the upper, whereas here you have that asymmetrical knit tongue, quite stretchy, basically one piece with the rest of the upper. The upper material itself is thicker and less pliable on the Cielo X1, whereas you have something very pliable and a bit thinner, more plasticky on the Rocket X2. I do prefer the material on the upper of the Rocket X2, sorry. I do prefer the tongue on the Rocket X2 and I do prefer the laces on the Rocket X2. And that's because the laces on the Cielo X1 are really terrible. I still haven't changed them, but I definitely need to change them because I actually enjoy using this shoe and I don't want to jump back to the conclusion. I definitely need to change them because they're just not good at all. What's good on the upper of the Cielo X1, because it may sound like nothing's good. Again, if you have wider feet with more volume, that's definitely the way to go. The heel cup, again, I prefer it on the Rocket X2, and yeah, I'm sorry if it sounds like the Cielo X1 doesn't have any good feature on the upper. It has some good stuff on the midsole. I just really prefer the upper of the Rocket X2. It's also, and we can link back to the video of the review of the Rocket X2 here, upper right hand corner. This upper was one of my favorite ones of all times, one of the most dialed in fits I've ever experienced. So it's hard to beat, and it's not just the Cielo X1 not being able to beat it. It's in general, most shoes will not be able to to be on par with this. Looking at the midsole, and that's where the differences are really, really huge. One piece PEBA midsole with that huge void in the midsole here at the bottom. You can see the plate. Very different here. You have also a double dual layer PEBA, 37C durometer for the top layer, 45C for the bottom layer. To give you an element of comparison, a Vaporfly is a 42C if I remember well. So it's softer on the top bottom of the midsole here on the Cielo X1 and a bit firmer than a Vaporfly on the bottom layer, making it that dual density that works quite well together. You have a winged carbon plate on this shoe for extra stability and a huge cutout on the lateral sides, a small cutout here in the forefoot and small cutout as well compared to this one in the heel. What are the main differences in the ways the two shoes work? Here you have something that really, really works together with the geometry, meaning that it has a huge rocker, a huge bevel in the heel as well, favoring a midfoot strike, or at least a snappy midfoot transition to use that rocker and propel you forward. Here you also have a rocker, but that is less pronounced, and at least that starts a bit further down the forefoot. It feels more like a shoe that will suit heel strikers, but also midfoot and forefoot strikers, whereas this is really more for midfoot to forefoot strikers. And if you're heel striking, then you really need to spend some time in your midfoot stance, just to take advantage of that rocker. And if you're, just like heel striking and kind of bouncing off without really transitioning and taking some time here in the midfoot, I'm not sure this shoe will be accommodating you really well. How do the two shoes compare at different paces? I would tend to say that the Rocket X2 feels a bit faster and is propelling you a bit more, if that makes sense. It's also a bit more taxing on your legs and it requires a bit more energy to move forward. This with the rocker feels a bit better at lower paces and definitely helps you feeling smooth and feeling assisted at, let's say, marathon pace down to half marathon pace. It loses a bit of that assistance at faster paces, 10K, 5K. It's also the weight that's kicking in. It's very heavy and this is heavier than the Rocket X2. And the Rocket X2 feels perfectly fine at faster paces, 10K, 5K, even intervals, 400-meter reps. This shoe doesn't. That's also where, maybe the two shoes can be separated in terms of use. Maybe half marathon, marathon for some of you, and maybe 5K and 10K. The way I would use them would be not racing in this shoe, just training long runs, cruising, maybe even a recovery on tired legs, taking advantage of that softer foam and very assisted ride. And racing would be for any distance in the Rocket X2. I actually raced in it last year, the 20 kilometers here in Brussels. I really enjoyed it. I probably would pick other shoes, non-hockey shoes for the marathon distance, not taking this one for a couple of reasons. One being the feet that is quite snug, and I know that my feet are swelling on the marathon distance, and therefore I don't think this would be the wisest choice. The other reason is that I just believe that I can save a bit more energy in some other shoes compared to this, but if I had to race in the Rocket X2 on the marathon distance, I would be comfortable doing it anyways. I just wouldn't race in the Cielo X1 because of the weights, taking some energy out of you, and also because I just don't think it's the right shoe for me to race on any distance. I'm a midfoot striker. I'm 70 kilos and 6 foot tall, 183 centimeters. If that can help you to understand if my recommendations or my perception is applying to you. Outsole of the two shoes, there's more coverage on the Cielo X1, a bit less on the Rocket X2. I have lots of kilometers on this shoe, around 250, 260, and definitely very limited wear on the outsole itself. The midsole that is next to the outsole shows some wear, but not too much. And I would expect this shoe to be even more durable, so nothing very concerning here. The traction, the grip is really average plus, quite good on the two shoes actually. So yeah, nothing to write home about the outsole here, and definitely no issues whatsoever. So this is really a draw here, and I wouldn't favor one shoe compared to the other. Obviously, you have more cutouts in this shoe, so if you run on gravel, packed dust with some stones, this will catch a bit more of them. This void is too big to catch anything, and if there's a stone here, it will just drop after a a couple of strides, so no big issue here. I haven't caught any stones in this shoe yet, but I'm sure it will happen and some of you will certainly report it. Looking at stability, this is more stable just because it has an angled bevel in the heel, preventing you to pronate too much without controlling your foot strike. So a bit more stable due to the extra width in the forefoot and that geometry, the beveled heel. The Rocket X2 isn't the most stable shoe at all out there, so if you're looking for some extra stability in one of these two shoes, go for the Cielo X1. Last but not least, let's look at the price, $275 to $50. This is cheaper, this is my preference. I would pick the Rocket X2. I'm not saying this is a bad shoe by any means, because it definitely is fun and is very gentle also. Quick recommendations: if you're looking for a stable marathon shoe between the two, Cielo X1. If you have wider feet with more volume, Cielo X1. If you're looking for a shoe for your first marathon or a very gentle shoe, Cielo X1. Longer runs, more accommodating paces, and something that works also better at slower paces, Cielo X1. If you're looking for something more aggressive, if you're looking for something to race 5K, 10K, half marathon distances, Rocket X2. If you're looking for a better fit, a bit more snug, a bit more race ready, Rocket X2. If you're looking for better laces, and I'm not kidding, Rocket X2 by a mile. And overall, if you're looking for something a bit cheaper, that's also a factor. Rocket X2 wins it as well. I hope you enjoyed this battle. I hope it helps you to decide between the two shoes. Thanks a lot for watching. Enjoy your run today, enjoy your ride, and go beyond your limits. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.